welcome. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Awesome. Thank you so much, and welcome to the 2026 Native Americans in Philanthropy Conference in beautiful Riverside, California. We are so thrilled to be able to gather brilliant minds. We gather passionate hearts from all across Turtle Island, ignite new ideas, build lasting connections, and honor our collective work in philanthropy. So over the next day or so, we want to learn from one another, lift up Indigenous voices, spark change, and really talk about solidarity and building our opportunities together. To open our gathering in a good way, we are so honored to welcome Michael Madrigal and the traditional Kauai singers of Southern California. Give them a round of applause, please.
Miahwa umnemem neneto Mike Madrigal nemahe kwianga Chemsun Achama. Good morning, everyone. Our hearts are good, and it's a beautiful day. We have a wonderful opportunity to get to know each other and to do good work on behalf of our communities. I would like to invite you to pray in your own ways. We'll have a prayer to ask Creator's strength, guidance, and blessings on our gathering. I first ask permission of our elders and the people of this land to gather and to offer the prayer today. My nephew and the other singers will be sharing some of our Kauai bird songs as well as part of our blessing. We want to thank all of our ancestors and elders. We want to thank the Yuhaaviatam Nation, Serrano. We want to thank the Tongva, Gabrielino nations. We want to thank the Payom Coachim Luiseño nations, and we want to thank the Yuhaaviatam Kauai nations for welcoming us to their homelands. And we thank Creator. We acknowledge the directions and all the blessings that we receive. Amna'a metawidetne Iowa achakwen echma muntemal chemsun achama. O greatness of being, O loving Creator, we thank you. Our hearts are good. We are thankful. Achakwen echma muntemal, O greatness of being, help us to be good to one another. We are all family. We thank you for the gifts of our human community, our animal and plant communities. We thank you for the gifts of Temal, Mother Earth, of Tukva'ash, Father Sky. We thank you for the gifts of Baal, water. We thank you for the gift of Kut, fire. We thank you for the gift of community. We ask that you help us to be loving and respectful to one another at all times. And we say, our hearts are good, Chemsun Achama. He. O greatness of being, we thank you for all of the blessings that you send to us today. We ask you to give us good hearts and clear minds to be able to do good work as we gather these days. We pray that our communities, wherever they are throughout this world, will be safe and protected. will be honored, and will always remember that we belong to you, O loving Creator. We belong to you, O loving Mother Earth. We ask you to give us kind hearts and gentle feet as we walk upon Mother Earth. We ask you to always give us direction and vision that will benefit all people and all of our community, the plants, the animals, and the world around us. We say, Chemsun Achama, we are grateful. We say, Chemsun Achama, our hearts are good. He, may it be this way. He, may it be this way. He, may it be this way. Thank you all for joining in the prayer. Now we'll have our songs.
All right, and as is our custom as Kauai people, we will sing some bird songs, and these are the stories of our migration and our creation and our philosophies as Kauai people are in these songs, and these dances that we do are healing, and they create good energy, and that's what we're trying to do for you all as you're here on our homelands, that you'll benefit from that good energy, and you're more than welcome to also come up and dance with us. My sister and my nephew down here at the bottom, so any Southern California people, front and center. Even if you've never seen these songs before, but you're feeling compelled to come up, you're more than welcome to join us. Shem kwekene, 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 the tree of shem kwekene. Shem kwekene, 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 the tree of shem kwekene, shem kwekene, shem kwekene, shem kwekene, shem kwekene, shem kwekene, shem kwekene. Shem kwekene, atewewe na wanga ne uyena, ne chiameta chemi wanga. Shem kwekene, shem kwekene, shem kwekene, shem kwekene, shem kwekene, atewewe runganga ne uyena, ne chiameta chemi wanga. Shem kwekene, shem kwekene, shem kwekene, shem kwekene, shem kwekene, shem kwekene, shem kwekene. Emily polo yo loyo. Emily palo yo loyo, 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 Emily family. You can clap, it's okay. Takwataluele, 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 takwataluele. 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 Takwataluele, 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 takwatalu. Achama, Hespen Achama. Thank you guys. So these songs traditionally are sung over a course of a whole night, starting from dusk and singing, starting the story, right? The creation of the people, and then the movement and the migration, and then a whole cycle of songs is sung throughout the night, and then the following night, the second one is sung, and then there's a third night to signify the three revolutions of our people going around the earth and populating the world. And so 3 is a very important number to us. As it is to many Native nations, to all Native nations. And so these songs almost died out, about 30 years ago. There were just a handful of elders that got together, and they took on that responsibility to carry these songs, to teach the language, to teach cultural revitalization, and that movement continues today through this new generation and the next generations to come. Yeah. So we honor those elders by singing these songs, those elders that are beneath our feet in the ground, and they're with us as we sing these songs and as we create this energy, this good energy for this entire room and our entire community. Me wachika mayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, mayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, mayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, mayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, me wachika wachika mayo eleo, emayo eleo, emayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, emayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, emayo eleo, emayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, emayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, emayo eleo, emayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, me wachika mayo eleo, emayo eleo, emayo wachika eya wemayame, 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 wachika eya wemaya. Hey. You guys are all out there in the dark lands and stuff this morning and trying to see how many of you guys are out there. So I hope you guys are staying awake. I hope that we're waking you guys up, for the great things that are going to happen today, the great conversations that are going to happen today, and the knowledge sharing that's going to happen today. So I hope this will be our last song. So I hope that you guys take this with you, and the time that you're here, that it helps you, and that when you go back home to wherever you came from, you'll be able to talk about those California Indians and about their songs and their rattles, and what you felt when you heard us sing and you saw us dance and you felt that. So this will be our last song for today, and thank you to NAPCON for having us come out. Yawacho mea e, 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 yawacho mea e. Anybody sing Reina? Tell Reina to get up here. Yawacho mea e, 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 yawacho Thank you guys for having us.
Give them another round of applause. That is how we open in a good way. We want to thank the Kauai Bird Singers again, so one more round of applause. Are we awake? Yeah. We are honored to have the Yuhaaviatam of San Manuel Nation as our presenting sponsor. Their vision, their generosity has really made this gathering possible, and their dedication to their values and philanthropy is really inspires us all to deepen our collective impact. It is now our privilege to welcome to the stage Chairwoman Lynn Valbuena of the Yuhaaviatam San Manuel Nation to share her words of wisdom and welcome as we begin our conference. Well, thank you, Chairwoman.
Well, good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing this morning? Good, good. Yuhaaviatam, in our Serrano language, that's a warm welcome to a large group of people here at this conference. So happy that you're in our backyard for Yuhaaviatam, which is our new name now. Actually, today is 1 year. April 15th of last year is when we changed our name, and I will explain the reasons why in my talking points. So with that being said, I am very honored to be here on behalf of our tribe Yuhaaviatam and our tribal council and welcome you to the Inland Empire here in Southern California. Our reservation is only about 20 minutes away, so if you have time after the conference over the next 2-3 days, come by and pay a visit to us. And Yamava is the name of our casino, which means into the spring, and Yamava also means a new beginning. So with that being said, I bring greetings from Yuhaaviatam of San Manuel Nation Tribal Council and our tribal nation. And with that being said, I'm always very, very inclusive of my tribe. I would like to have our 2 council members that are here with me today in the room to stand and be recognized. Audrey Martinez, our tribal secretary, who is also my sister, and also my cousin, Joe Morongo. Joe, please stand. And Joe, also, he is under our culture pillar, so does a lot of work with our culture pillar, being on tribal council that has to do with repatriation, artifacts, the language, the unity trips, the children. It goes on and on and on. So thank you, Joe, and thank you, thank you, Madam Secretary, for everything you do for us. So, moving on. So, Riverside is within the south portion of our Madiam ancestral homelands, which Madiam in our Serrano language means the people. And Yuhaaviatam in our language means people of the pines, because back in the day, our reservation was full of nothing but pine trees on the reservation. And with that being said, our people are the descendants of the Madiam ancestors. We were named Serrano Indians by the Spanish explorers in the 1700s, which is a Spanish word meaning Highlander. So our ancestors were residing within their summer home in the San Bernardino Mountains when they encountered Spanish explorers, and that is the reason for the label Serrano Indians. Our ancestral territory includes more than 7.4 million acres in Southern California, 7.4 million acres. So we have a lot of ancestral land in our territory and through our ancestors. So in 1891, our reservation was established with only 640 acres along the steep foothills of the San Bernardino Mountains. So when you visit our reservation, you'll notice that our homes are on hilltops because we would have to level mountaintops to build homes and level land for our tribal citizens to build on the reservation because it's mountaintops, and you can see that. So by 1891, the California tribal nations were impacted by no fewer than 4 waves of invasion. Spain, with their mission system in California, began in 1769, and that was driven by the ideology of manifest destiny. American westward expansion invaded the nation, our tribal nation territories, beginning in 1822, including here in California. And as most of you probably know, California is one state that has the most federally recognized tribes, with currently 109 out of, I believe now it's like 574 in the entire nation, and 229 native villages in Alaska. So Mexico's independence from Spain gave control over California in 1821, and similarly subjugated indigenous people to work on rancherias and other labor. American westward expansion increased in 1848 by the discovery of gold in California. In an address to the state legislature in 1852, California's first governor outlined a policy that defined the genocide targeting Indian people throughout the state. So to implement that policy, the state government, with help and resources from the federal government, armed local militias to rid the state of Indian people by placing a bounty on Indian lives. In 1866, our Kika, which in our Serrano language means our leader, Santos Manuel, and that's where San Manuel came from, is our great-great-grandfather, led the remaining 30 Yuhaaviatam tribal citizens to safety on the San Bernardino Valley floor, which is part of our ancestral territory. So as you see, long before federal Indian policies of assimilation, termination, relocation, and Public Law 280 as well became a commonplace, California tribes had already experienced decades of invasion, displacement, disposition of our lands and of our resources, genocide, fake treaties, a host of other actions designed to eliminate tribal nations in the state. But we are still here, right? We are still here. So with Madiam cultural sovereignty, our foundation, we've survived so many atrocities, so many to become even stronger than we were back then and stronger than anyone wanted us to be. So today, the Yuhaaviatam of San Manuel Nation is a strong, sovereign tribal nation with a visionary government, strong partnerships with other governments, building relationships, having a robust program of philanthropy that extends across California throughout Indian country. Just a year ago, we formally reclaimed our ancestral name, as I had mentioned earlier, and that has been one thing that we had wanted to do for decades, and it finally happened. So it's our inherent sovereignty to do that and to leave behind the name Samoa Band of Mission Indians, a name that the colonizers gave to us decades ago. So today is the 1-year anniversary, as I had explained earlier. And in 2021, we adopted the first Yuhaaviatam of Samuel tribal constitution, which gives us a new structure for our sovereign tribal government as well. For 10 years, a group of our tribal citizens collaborated over drafting our tribal constitution and still working on it with many committees, tireless hours to get it done, which now reflects who we are as a sovereign nation, and it's our inherent right for our tribal government. Our Constitution is a living document that will set the foundation for how future generations may choose to build on the governmental structure as they need and meet the challenges of their day. And that's why we have what we call our Tribal Youth Committee, because we are mentoring our youth, and they mirror what our Tribal Council does, sit in on our meetings, do public speaking, testify in Sacramento, Washington, D.C., because those are our future leaders in our future generations, and we want to continue to move forward in a positive manner and have our children know our culture and our language and what we do as Native people. And as we always say, our mother and grandmother always told us, never forget who you are as Native people or where you came from, and treat people like you would want them to treat you with respect. Those words of wisdom have taken me a long ways in life to be where I'm at today and to share with others stories on how we started and where we're at today. So with the Yuhaaviatam Samoan Nation Philanthropy Program, one of the landmarks of the people of Santos Manuel has been our philanthropy. In the early days of our giving efforts, we relied solely on compassion and empathy while responding to the needs of other communities, and we would do what we could to assist. We did not have a system for standards or receiving requests, evaluating requests, and making funding decisions. But today we do. We have a whole department that does all of the due diligence, that makes site visits, that comes back and tells the tribe and the council what needs are out there in our community, and that's what we do as a tribe. After a few years of this approach, we learned that philanthropy is an industry and of itself that is to be effective. We needed to understand how this industry worked. We sought professionals and experts to learn about the business of philanthropy so we could be efficient, effective, and impactful. Today, we are proud to host a program that has become an integral part of the Inland Empire's regional community and one of the ways that our tribe is recognized. So why is Yuhaaviatam of Samoan Nation philanthropy important? Well, I have to tell you, it really fills my heart and makes me very happy, as well as other tribal citizens, when I can recall growing up as a child, 6, 7 years old, and waiting for the Salvation Army and Goodwill trucks to come up and bring cardboard boxes of shoes and clothes to us. And as kids would go into our sacred house, the Kich Atarach, but it's our big house, and we would go through the boxes of clothes and shoes and take home what fit us. And now we generously still give back to the Salvation and to Goodwill and to those who need assistance. So the background in the early 1980s, Kaiser Steel closed their plant in Fontana, resulting in the loss of 10,000 high-paying jobs that impacted the Inland Empire. In 1994, Norton Air Force Base closed under the federal base closure policy that resulted in the loss of another 10,000 jobs. So in a 10-year period, the Inland Empire lost 20,000 jobs that also devastated small businesses and the regional economy. The results were high unemployment increase in social service needs, loss of revenues for taxes, local governments, and a strained economy. So the city of San Bernardino went through some very, very difficult times. Had it not been for our tribal gaming efforts, creating jobs, purchasing goods, building relationships, good services, partnering, and contributing to the social development needs of the region, the Inland Empire may not have even been any worse off. So after and over the past 20 years, Yuhaaviatam of Samoa Nation has granted more than $450 million to nonprofit groups and community organizations throughout the Inland Empire region, across California, and in Indian country throughout the United States. We are so happy that we have the ability to do that. Our established partnerships with these wonderful nonprofits have allowed them to address pressing needs and issues with the populations they serve. Our Vice President of Brand Marketing, Jessica Stops, will follow my remarks with a panel discussion about tribal philanthropy, so I will not go into much detail. I'll be talking up here all day, and you don't want to hear all my stories either. So, anyhow, but I will say that we have worked very, very hard, and it's been great working with our nonprofit partners and community organizers and organizations to educate them on what we believe are our standards for an effective and strong relationship in philanthropy. So, with that being said, we have a film documentary, but before I close my remarks, I am happy to share that we will be screening our documentary film about the Yuhaaviatam of Samoa Nation later this afternoon, I believe around 3 o'clock. This was an exciting project that took several years of research, writing, shooting film, and finally producing a critical account of our history. Jessica Stops, who you will hear from shortly, as I mentioned, led the development of this documentary called Mariam, the Yuhaaviatam story that recounts our history from the creation to present day, including impacts of federal Indian policies on our tribe. So I'm gonna pause and we're gonna play a 2-minute trailer right now.
There's a lot of hurt and pain that has gone with our experience as tribal people, in this country.
We apologize on behalf of the citizens of California to all California Native Americans for the many instances of violence, maltreatment, neglect, murder inflicted on the tribes.
It was either be white or go away.
And these are the things that, that were beaten out of the tribe. It's whitewashed, it's whitewashed, it's whitewashed.
Like everybody else, you forget about what happened to you and you just try to go on and you try to make things better for your kids. At the same time, losing sight of what happened in the past.
When the world comes and condemns you for being who you are as Indian people, that's where your endurance and resiliency came forward. They kept the culture alive in their own backyard or even underground. Let's get back to the factual accounts of what happened so that now we can start to heal.
If we don't talk about these things and it's history lost, history will repeat itself.
We are a strong people. We've had many things happen to us already, and we still exist.
Just thinking about how, quickly a population can be turned against one another, against other groups, and be told to dehumanize certain other groups. As much as we like to think that things like that can never happen again, and they can.
Sovereignty is always going to be under attack. It's never, never, never a good idea to quit fighting.
So we at Yuhaaviatam are excited to show the documentary this afternoon at 3 o'clock for those of you that are available. So thank you again. We are so proud to share our history with you. It means a lot to us, and we hope you're able to attend. So again, in closing, thank you. It was such an honor to be invited here today to speak to all of you. So happy that you're right here in our backyard, and we're right here in the area. And our staff will be here also throughout the remainder of the conference and invite you to visit with them in history and any experiences with philanthropy. They'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Again, I want to extend our very best wishes from Yuhaaviatam, our tribal council, for a successful conference. We pray that your journey back home to your families and to your communities will be safe. Akupa'i. Thank you.
And now, welcome to the stage, CEO of Native Americans in Philanthropy, Eric Stegman.
Good morning, everyone. I know that was like super dramatic. I am so excited to see this amazing full room here this morning, and I just want to start by thanking Chairwoman Valbuena for those opening remarks, and to the bird singers for starting us in such a beautiful way. It's really an honor to be here, especially at this one-year anniversary after Yuhaaviatam has reclaimed their name as a tribe, and I really hope some of you will be able to go and see that film tomorrow. I'm Eric Stegman. I'm the CEO here at Native Americans in Philanthropy. I grew up in the Seattle area, but my mom grew up on the Blackfeet Reservation as a little kid, where my grandfather was a dentist, and her family is from the Carry the Kettle First Nation, which are the Nakota people in southern Saskatchewan. It's really an honor to welcome you all here. I hope that your journeys were comfortable, and I know yesterday was a wonderful day to kick off things with our pre-meetings, and there was just an amazing energy at our reception yesterday. I feel like Chairwoman Valbuena really kind of brought the vibe here with her amazing bling. I've seen a lot of that throughout the entire network that's been coming in, and I'm excited to share more of that celebratory spirit with you throughout the days ahead. Being back here in Southern California is also really meaningful for me too, because I actually came to Southern California to go to college out at Whittier College, and actually met my husband, who went to University of Redlands just down the road. So I spent a lot of time here at Riverside and did a lot of work when I was in law school with tribal communities here, worked with some of the student groups at Sherman Indian School, did a lot of work with Yuhaaviatam and their amazing programs that they've funded all across Southern California. So it really is an honor to be able to be here and be in this space and be welcomed. So I really want to thank, again, Chairwoman Valbuena and the council for inviting us here, inviting our whole network. I'm really proud that we could bring our national network to your homelands. So today I'm really excited to kick off our conference with this plenary conversation, because I actually spent most of my life working in tribal law and policy and really working for tribes and tribal leaders. I worked across a lot of different issues, worked at organizations like National Congress of American Indians, worked directly for tribal courts, and when I came into Native Americans in Philanthropy, I really felt like one of the strongest things that was missing in our network after being around for 30 years was the direct work with tribes themselves. For so many years, we've built this amazing foundation of our Native-led nonprofits and leaders in philanthropy, those who are working in philanthropy, but really we wanted to find a new way to center tribes, tribal nations, and their own investments in the field. As tribal nations really are shaping the way philanthropy does what it does, but too often those tribal nations are not actually at the table in what we might call mainstream philanthropy, at the same kinds of conferences that me and my staff show up at every day. And so today is really one of many things we're trying to do at Native Americans in Philanthropy to really platform the work of tribes like Yuhaaviatam and the amazing work that they're doing to lead in philanthropy and to show that we can do things a different way. We can do things that are grounded in our own values. So I'm hoping that as we go into this conversation today, you'll get to hear from those who are working on the ground in tribally led philanthropy. How are they doing their work? How are the councils like Yuhaaviatam and Yochadihi, who are you going to be hearing from, driving that work? And how are their staff implementing that important work in philanthropy? What are some of the things that the rest of the philanthropic field should be hearing from tribes, and how can we start to support a stronger national infrastructure to really support our own people doing our own philanthropy across the country. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and invite our guests to the stage, and we're going to jump into some conversation. Please come on up. I don't know if any of you were at our Minneapolis conference when it looked kind of like a Pee Wee Herman set, but these are much easier chairs to sit in. So, good morning and welcome, both of you. I'm really excited to have you both here to join us in this conversation. I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourself in your own way and what brings you to your work, and then if you could just share, one example of how your tribal nation leads and demonstrates the kinds of investments that you're doing in your community would be great. So I'm going to start with you, Lindsay.
OCO, my name is Lindsay Bear. I am of Cherokee and Danish descent. My parents are Audie and Julie Bear. My family is John Behan from Wind River Reservation and Maya Bear Behan, our tiny elder in training and boss. She came to her first nap when she was 1 year old, and so she wanted me to say hello to everyone. She thinks of it as her conference. Our families now live in California. We were relocated. And so we live in Sacramento, and I feel like this is the most California description. So our house is right between Miwok and Nisenan territory, and then right across the river, 5 minutes, is Patwin territory. And there are 3 Patwin tribes, Kachil-Dihi of the Calusa Indian community, Quetzal-Dihi Winton Nation, and Yocha-Dihi Winton Nation. And I am fortunate to get to work at Yocha-Dihi Winton Nation as their director of philanthropy. And I came to it actually as a grantee. I was a young person, I was a journalist at News from Native California, and they invested in me and in the writers and were very encouraging. And so many years later, when they asked for me to come back to do the philanthropy, it felt like such an honor to get to give back to this program that had invested in me, had invested in so many people that I saw grow up. And so I think that is, for me, a deep part of how Yocha-Dihi works, is that there's 2 funds, there's 2 philanthropic funds at Yocha-Dihi. One is the community fund, and that's been around for 25 years. And it's an intergenerational fund, so we have 3 generations of grant makers in the room. It's about 20 people all making the decisions together, grandparents, parents, children, all there doing it. And I feel like that kind of intergenerational spirit, that generosity is an intergenerational project, is very deep in the heart of what Yocha-Dihi does. And then the other fund at Yocha-Dihi is the Duyuri-Takama Fund, which in Patwin means to give the acorn. And Duyuri-Takama is a unique negotiation that the Tribal Council did with the state of California when they did their gaming compact, that they negotiated that part of the funds that would otherwise go to the state, the tribe gets to direct to worthy causes, to Indian country, to their homelands. And it's an honor. That one's been around for about 10 years. So it's only 2 generations in, but they still have 3 generations in the room making the decisions. So I think the thing that's so meaningful to me is that this is a long-term project of Yocha-Dihi. This isn't one generation, one moment, and we'll talk about it later, but I don't even think it's this 25 years of philanthropy. So it's an honor to get to work in this long time immemorial long tradition of Patwin generosity.
Okay, thank you. Jessica?
Thank you. My name is Jessica Stopps. I am a tribal citizen of the Crow tribe in Montana. I've worked for Yuhaaviatam of San Manuel Nation now for about 7 years. When I first started working for the tribe, they hired me on as the Vice President of Tribal Brand Marketing. And just a little background there to how I got into the philanthropy side of it. We have a strong team of about 50 people who are focused on marketing for the enterprise, for the gaming area. But nobody was focused on the tribe and making sure that people understood, how do you say their name correctly? How do you not disrespect them culturally? Or how do you understand what they're doing in the community from a philanthropy standpoint that's really uplifting and making the world a better place? And on that note, how do we communicate to our 8,000 employees how not to go create their own business cards and call themselves whatever they'd like, you know? So we needed somebody to really focus on them and make sure that we're respecting them the way that they're respecting the community around them. And so this position was created. I was primarily, my history was in advertising, branding, marketing, up until that point, and now I fancy myself 100% in tribal government. I don't even remember what life was like in advertising, branding, and marketing, because about 6 months later, I was fortunate enough to be bestowed upon this great honor to oversee the philanthropy program. A philanthropy program that had been in place for over 20 years. I mean, just to reiterate, what Chairwoman Valbuena said, the tribe has given over $450 million in just the last 20 years. And that is just since they started tracking, because they gave long before that. That was just back of the napkin grant agreements back then, right? Led by Jacob Coyne, so who's also in the audience. I can't see anybody because it's very bright, but that's probably a good thing. So very, very honored to lead this program with my team who's also here. The program is called Manuel Cares. We focus on the community around us in health, education, economic development, and of course, Indian country and protecting and preserving Indian country's language, culture, land preservation, you name it. Like, we want to make sure that we're there to protect our people. I think I answered the question.
Oh yeah, no, that's a great start. I really appreciate it. And Lindsay, can you tell us a little bit about how Yuhaaviatam does its philanthropy as really a reflection of its tribal values?
The tribal values are on every wall. They're everywhere. It's great. You see them all the time. And it's, let's see if I can do it off the top of my head. Community and family, communication, integrity, respect, loyalty, accountability, and balance and harmony. And I think where I see it in the philanthropy is they give across a pretty wide selection of topics, right? They give to land stewardship, to health and education, a lot to sovereignty. They're very invested just in the well-being, you know, the health of the people, the health of the land, and how all of these things intersect. And they also have, you know, that 7-generation way of thinking about it. And so every grant, every day, everything we talk about is grounded in those values. And they just did some interviews about the 25th anniversary of the fund, and they were asked, you know, how did you get into philanthropy? Why did you choose this? Much like Yuhaaviatam, Yuhaaviatam hasn't had economic prosperity for a very long time. They're only really one generation out from needing philanthropy, from needing charity, and they talk about this a lot. And as soon as they had the resources to do philanthropy, they did it. And so we asked, you know, why this? And they said, well, before we called it philanthropy, when we had nothing, you know, somebody's grandfather, Secretary Durham's grandfather, was a really good hunter. And he would bring back deer, and he would make sure he gave it to the whole community. And former Chairwoman Paula Tackett, there were stories about her getting in her beat-up car with the kids and making a bunch of sandwiches and driving it around to their community, but to the rest of the rural farming community around them, making sure everybody got to eat. And so I think those values have been their values in leaner times, now in more prosperous times, and the values dictate that this is their responsibility, like taking care of one another is their responsibility. And so in philanthropy, they are really deeply relational with their grantees. They know them. They, get deep in with them. They are very forthright in that communication. And I feel like the values aren't just these ideals that are up on the wall. They're really part of every decision. In some ways, I think maybe philanthropy is the device for teaching the next generation how to be like Patwin people, Patwin responsibility.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and I think it says so much about the, these ways that we can really embed this in our work, and I think it really is what sets tribes apart from a lot of the rest of the philanthropic field. And Jessica, Chairwoman Valbuena was talking a lot about the values that Yuhaaviatam it brings to the work that they're doing, and I think especially as we're celebrating this, 1 year of reclaiming the name. In addition to how Yuhaaviatam is doing this work in how it's grounded in values, how does the tribe actually approach setting priorities when it comes to philanthropic funding, especially for how long you all have been in the field?
Sure. Well, the tribe set their priorities long before I came about. Our pillars are inspiring our future through education, reinforcing healthy and resilient communities, preserving cultural traditions, and empowering lives. And so they want to make sure that we're giving back in all of these areas, which are pretty vague and vast, right? They want to make sure that we're covering everything that we could possibly need to cover, right? Where we're helping everyone we could possibly need to help in the community and in Indian country. We have one grant cycle per year. We used to have two, but that was quite a bit. We have one grant cycle per year, and I really just want to share a little bit of information about that. We had over 400 grant applications that just closed about a month ago. We had over 400 grant applications. Half of those were from Native nonprofits or tribal governments, totaling over $20 million. Just to put a little perspective, we maybe have half of that to give out, and that's just from our Native nonprofits, not to mention the community that surrounds the ancestral territory, the over 7.4 million acres that Chairwoman mentioned. It's very important to the tribe that they're taking care of the people on their lands and beyond, but really making sure that those that are around them, those that are around the reservation, those that have grown up with them and around them, that we're taking care of them, that we're providing healthcare options, we're providing scholarships and education programs for Native and non-Native students, that we're really embedding those values and those pillars in the community that we live in, and also beyond that. And one other note I wanted to mention that also takes us beyond California. The tribe recently purchased the Palms in Las Vegas back in 2022, and with that they said, we don't want to just have our philanthropy program support these lands, but wherever we go. So if we're going to Las Vegas and we're going to operate a business in Las Vegas, then we know that we've got 2,000 team members, employees that have families, that need services, that need health care, that need education. And so we also operate programs over there or wherever they happen to have business units, so that we're taking care of everyone that's around them.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and I think it brings me to a question I was wanting to throw to you too, Lindsay, is what is the role of place-based stewardship in your work? We're grounded in the place that we are. It's another thing that I think tribal nations really bring to this work. But when you and the Yuhaaviatam Nation are approaching this work, how do you look at that place-based responsibility?
Similarly, the focus is Indian country, but also the tribe's ancestral homeland. So that's, for them, it's Yolo and Solano County and little pieces of Napa, Lake, and Calusa around. And I think when you think of place-based philanthropy, it's so important to remember that, these folks, Putnam people, have been in this place, knowing this place for all time. And so they have a much deeper and richer history of it. And I think, they live there. These grantees are not theoretical people or theoretical problems. It's their problems. And they've stayed there through the absolute worst circumstances, right? The horrors of genocide, through famines and droughts and fires. Like, they're staying, they're committed in the long term. And I think that's something that, even as someone who's, from a relocation family and gets to live in someone else's ancestral homelands, that all of philanthropy can learn from, is that Indigenous people in their homelands have a commitment to that place and an expertise of that place that is unparalleled. It's absolutely unmatched. And so, what I see with the grant-making committees that are all made up of citizens at Yochadihi is that there's very little 101, right? We don't start out with like, oh, this is the problem. A lot of these conversations, you're talking about restoring a watershed, they're like, well, in 1512, this is what it looked like. And then in 1894, they have these deep histories, or even if, they're facing newer problems like a pandemic, they're like, yeah, we've been through pandemics before. We've had this. We know how to do this. And so I think there's a real testament that I think happens with a lot of communities that have been there a long time, but no one's been there as long as these Indigenous communities, of learning from an expertise that you can't learn in books, and seeing resources stewarded with that kind of expertise, I think gives nuanced solutions that no one coming in could get to.
Yeah, that's it's such a great point, I think, and one of the other things that I think is really coming out for me, for both of your perspectives too, is how differently we sort of organize our concept of how philanthropy is done. So, talking about the interconnected role of the tribal government and business and history and all of this work is a lot of what we actually bring to philanthropy. As I remember when I was working at the Center for Native American Youth several years ago, we had a partnership with NAFOA to do a youth fellowship, and we had some of your team from Yochadihi talking to the students about how they built their business enterprises, but they were also talking about their philanthropy, talking about those values, and it was so powerful for those young people to hear how tribes are approaching this more holistically, which was really important. Okay, so one of the things that I am most excited about with this conversation, and this is our opportunity to really challenge the field, is that, I kind of stumbled in philanthropy like a lot of people. Actually, a huge number of my staff had never actually worked in philanthropy, but we've learned a lot over the years. And one of the things that's always frustrated me is I go to all of these conferences and I sit at these tables with these big foundations that have a lot of resources, influence, and power, and I've always thought, why aren't our tribal nations at these tables? We are doing this work so powerfully. We're investing so many resources in so many important programs in our communities and our own people, and yet I hardly ever see us at those tables bringing the real power that we bring, which is both resources, but it's also this cultural power that we bring to the table. And so I just love, from either of you, where have you partnered with some of the sort of mainstream foundations, the large institutional funders? What have you learned from those partnerships? And then I'm going to jump into what we can do from here. So either of you want to jump in on that?
Well, we could go in a number of different ways with that answer. I think I'll go with an example of a partnership that we did with an institution, with a foundation, but it was a university. So University of Las Vegas, Nevada. In 2019, the tribe gave a $6 million endowment to the Hera College of Hospitality. It was important for us to, we have maybe like 24 employees that come from that college, right, with a big gaming hospitality operation. And so Jacob Coyne, as a matter of fact, I think brought to the table, to the tribal council saying, hey, so many of our people are not in those leadership opportunities. They're not at the table of the management and the general managers of these gaming operations. We need to be educating our own people so that they could take those roles. And what better way than to go to the #1 hospitality school in the country and build a partnership. Boy, did they not know what was coming when we built this partnership with them, okay? Because we weren't just going to give them money and walk away and let them go be, you know, the #1 hospitality school in the country. We were going to be very invested and very involved in the outcome and the success and the development of what they were going to be doing. So that started off with engaging tribes, engaging tribal colleges, asking tribes to send their people to this school. Like, what's gonna make you comfortable sending your students to this university in Las Vegas, of all places, right? What's gonna make you comfortable with knowing that they're gonna get a good education? And it took a big overhaul and a large sort of educational aspect for the university to really understand you need to be integrating culture. You need to be integrating tribal gaming and tribal government, tribal hospitality into your curriculum. You need to be doing new curriculum. And they learned that kind of the hard way. It took a couple years. We hit a pandemic. There was a bunch of things that were going against them in the very beginning, but now, once they learned that they really needed to have some representation, and they hired some amazing woman named Tammy Tiger, who many of you might know. Once they hired Tammy was able to grow that program significantly. I think by 45%, we increased Native students, 45%. And I'm happy to say and proud to say that they've really taken you know, what we wanted to build to heart, and they've really been successful with that. But it was not without true partnership, without true coming to the table and really expressing where we wanted to be and what was important to us and to Indian country, and making sure that they learned that. You know, with Tammy coming on board, she was able to, it was not easy in the beginning, let me tell you, okay? She was able to really infuse culture to the faculty and to the students, and it's just quite a different place now, and we're really proud of what they've been able to develop with that gift that we gave them.
Such a great example, and just to think about the kind of long-term impact that a tribal nation coming and doing that kind of partnership to leave it a big institution like that too is really impressive. How about you, Lindsay? What have you learned from partnering with big-time philanthropy?
The example that comes to mind is actually the tribe was really instrumental with philanthropy, with conservation groups, in getting the Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument designated a couple of years ago, and protecting Mulugloyak, which is a very special place to them. And I think one of the things that I've sort of learned, and I think some of the partners learned, is that it's not just drop a check and go, right? When you're talking about protecting homelands, this is their family, right? This is their place. This is where they come from. And so the tribe is involved, not just with, you know, funding the protection, funding the movement, but also on the ground, planting the plants, doing the cultural resource protection, taking the kids out there. And it's not the same as maybe a foundation who will come and go. You know, they're gonna be out there. If there's a fire, they're fired. They have the only nationally or internationally accredited tribal fire department in the world. Their fire department's gonna be there. And so I think one of the things that we learned with those partnerships is how you can leverage everyone's interests when everyone's interests are very different. You know, even within Yochadihi, even within our one grant-making committee, not everyone has the same political beliefs, not everyone has the same religion, not everyone has, the same, ideas about what we should be doing, but there's such a premium put on respectful dialogue and about finding the values that you can align on, getting the work that you can get done on. That takes precedent. And I think that's something, that made the partnership, to designate a national monument, which is no mean feat, possible, is that they kept coming back to the table. They kept coming back to it. I mean, I think that's the other thing about, place-based, right, is persistence. It's like, oh, it's gonna take 25 years, 50 years, 100 years, cool. Like, they're in it for that. And I think that's something that that really works in these partnerships to get big things done, is that they show up for the long term and they show up with everything, all of their resources and expertise. If it's important, they're going to be there, no matter how difficult it gets.
Yeah, and I think almost thinking of those kinds of philanthropic institutions that are led by tribes as really being that important backbone sort of steward that's going to have that long vision, I think is really critical. I'm going to throw it back to you, Lindsay. One of the other things, we spend a lot of time in our field, especially at NAP, trying to influence different parts of the philanthropic sector. Oftentimes that's mostly about trying to get philanthropy to give more to tribal communities ultimately, but a lot of it's about the practice. And so a lot of what we've been talking about is the role of those values in the work, how we do this giving. Could you walk us through a little bit on how your actual funding structure works at Yochadihi? Because there's a lot of different structures out there in how tribes are doing their own philanthropy. Each tribal nation obviously develops it their own way, but can you walk us through a little bit of that and let us know sort of how tribal law actually has a role in that too?
Yeah, so we were talking about this. If you know one tribal philanthropy program, you know one tribal philanthropy program, right? We're all very different. So at Yochadihi, the community fund comes directly from the tribe's general fund. There is no 501c3, which means there's no tax incentive. I remember taking our young grant makers to a philanthropy conference and getting these little notes across the table of like, what do you mean there's a tax break to this? What's a TSP? They're like, what's our TSP? I was like, it's 100%. Your TSP is 100%. Like, tribal council, earmarks $2.5 million a year to this group, and it's pure giving. It also means that fund is only governed by tribal law. So, they can choose to do with it what they want. It's not governed by IRS restrictions. It doesn't have that same benefit. And in that way, that funding is completely sovereign, right? Technically it's international aid, right? It's coming from one nation, going out of the borders of that nation, and then either going to other tribal nations or going to the nonprofits within the United States, which are outside of their national boundaries. And so that really gives them the flexibility to do with it as they see fit. The other fund, Deity Takama, is $24 million a year, and that comes from this compact with the state. But again, it's not funneled through a 501c3, so it's only governed by this negotiation. I said, like, okay, what are all the laws? And they gave me one document, and they're like, we negotiated this in 2016. It is exactly what we mean. It's exactly what, we think that funds should go toward. It talks about culture. It's this very heartfelt compact in some ways. It talks about the value of education and helping unrecognized tribes and, what they value. And that's the guiding that's the legal document, which they can renegotiate if they want. At any point, they can go back to the state and say, and they've done it a couple of times, like, you know what, this was too restrictive. we really need to be able to help in this way. And so that is their kind of sovereign to sovereign negotiation that governs it. But because both of the funds are guided only by tribal law negotiation, in some ways they're immune to both philanthropic trends, but also to the threats that can come to philanthropy, to restrictions. You know, they can ride out a lot of that because, you know, the way they've structured it is just unhampered by colonial law.
Yeah, those are such interesting points because so much of our work too in advocating with the field is helping different kinds of philanthropy understand how their dollars work together. You know, a lot of the work that we do when we're trying to support our nonprofits and our tribal nation partners, when philanthropy is asked to do so much, for instance, is remind them how flexible their dollar is, how they can invest that dollar to help unlock, you know, nation-to-nation treaty resources through the federal government. But that's really interesting that you all bring that different kind of way that you can give legally to the table, which I think is really important for a lot of other funders to think about. Jessica, anything that you'd like to highlight on sort of how you see that structure? I think the other interesting thing that doesn't get brought out enough in California, at least, is the role of that compacting, that's actually a really important values conversation. This isn't just some contract for the tribes, but anything else you'd like to highlight on your structure?
Yeah, so we have a very small team, small but mighty. We give to 501c3 nonprofits, but also tribal governments. And I think what a lot of people, we try to remind them, and I think what's important to understand is, like, really it's based around relationships, right? We have processes, we have structure, we have restrictions even, you know, we have reporting, we have guidelines, we have requests that have to go into your grant agreement. But we're also not inflexible. We also know things come up, things happen, things need to be reworked, things maybe don't go as planned, and we need to be flexible enough to work with you. And I think one of the things that the chairwoman always talks about, and I think she did this morning, is the power of a relationship. And our small team meets with every single nonprofit that applies for a grant or a tribe. If a tribe applies for a gift, we are often visiting that tribe and making sure that we are understanding exactly what they need, because it is so important for the Yuhaaviatam of San Nation to make sure that we are taking care of our native nonprofits and our tribal governments, so our fellow tribal governments. So it's really important to keep that structure because you need to treat we treat our philanthropy as a business in a lot of instances, but keeping that structure, keeping those policies, but also knowing when to be flexible and to be supportive and help others in a way that they need it and that matters to them.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Lindsay.
Oh, I was just gonna say, we have that in common. That's so interesting. You know, of the different ways we do it, we also meet with every applicant and spend so much time. And it's amazing how much that informs the access and like the depth of understanding of the work.
Yeah, on that note, we had over 500 requests. So we had, over 200 requests for native orgs, and tribal governments. We had over 500 requests in this grant cycle, and the team meets with every single one of them. And one of the things that I think is so important and so valuable, that whether it's in this area or whether it's in Las Vegas, as I mentioned, we do some giving back in that area as well, is our team, it allows our team to educate everyone who's not native on native people, native education, native culture. It's very, very important to us. It's very, very important to the tribe to connect one another, to explain and make sure that they're, we've opened up so many eyes in just Las Vegas alone. Like, they didn't realize how many tribes were in Nevada, and I'm like, come on guys, let's do better, right? But we're there to be able to help people understand that and hopefully grow their minds and their education and even their programs.
Just thinking through, just the experience that you both bring to this too. I've been running into a number of different partners here at the conference who are working at their own tribe's philanthropic organization or for the tribe directly. What advice would you share for other tribal philanthropies that are at different stages of trying to grow and scale their work? What are some of those key lessons you've learned as you're really supporting the tribal nations that you work for in that work?
Well, one of the things we've learned is you have to have those guidelines, right? I mean, as I said, we have had hundreds of requests and over $40 million of funding requested, and we only have a fraction of that to be able to give. So you have to have something in place that allows for these guidelines, these requirements for you to evaluate at the highest level at least, like what should be moving forward, what is strong enough to be able to move forward. So I think it's important to have structure, but also flexibility. And wow, I just really cannot harp enough on the power of a relationship. A lot of our partners don't just call us when the report is due or when the grant application cycle opens. They're calling us every month and letting us know about all the wonderful things that they're doing and the ways that they're growing and the opportunities that they're having, just to keep us informed and build that connection. So when the time comes and they've got a really big opportunity before them, we already know about it at that point, and we're able to hopefully support them in a number of different ways.
Great. Anything from you, Lindsay?
I feel like I have a positive and a negative. My negative is you will probably be asked to solve all of the problems that colonization brought. That is not your responsibility. Asking tribal people to solve every problem that settler colonialism has wrought upon us is not actually feasible, but it's actually not the best use of Native people's time. And my positive one is, in my experience, I can only speak for myself, working for this tribe, working with other tribes, is Native people are natural futurists. Like, you have such a good sense of history, you're so used to thinking generations out, you're just great futurists. But often being a futurist means being misunderstood. We have a game in my house called Welcome to the Party, which is science makes some discovery. Like, guess what? Trees can talk to each other. And my husband and I will tell like a story that like embodied that, and it's like, oh, science, welcome to the party. Like, it's so nice to have you here. And I think one thing that I see at Yuhaaviatam is sometimes the tribe gets treated like it's being obstructionist when it's asking partners, either other governments or movements, to look at a bigger picture, right? And they're like, oh, we don't want to slow down and look at a big picture. We want to go fast and solve the immediate problem with an immediate solution. We don't want to think about, what an environmental policy will do for racial justice. We don't want to talk about, cultural heritage when we're building a wind farm. And the nation is often saying, hey, there's a bigger picture here. There's a bigger thing you need to think of. And it gets treated like it's trying to slow things down. It's anti-progress. When in fact, there's just a better sense of the big picture of how things are connected. And they're looking for solutions that 7 generations out are not going to have to be undone. And so I think if you're getting into philanthropy, with your tribe, and you're growing this out, and you're making partnerships with other funders, you get used to, kind of describing that if the other foundations don't get the solution or don't get the future, it's probably because they're a little behind. And it's not that the solutions that Indian country comes up with are, so bizarre or involved. It's just they come from a depth of expertise that might be a little ahead of where your colleagues are. And so I think get ready to do a lot of storytelling to scale that out, because you're sometimes going to have to bring other people along that are going to want to rush for the right now. But you might be doing the go slow to go fast, where you're really thinking about things in a bigger way.
Great. Well, that is a wonderful note to end this amazing conversation. Really appreciate your insights. If you could all please join me in thanking Lindsay and Jessica for this wonderful conversation.